shitlords, shitladies of the internet, Gamergate, people, me, and a bit of rum. So I'm 2 shots in. Not gonna drink any more tonight, but my lips are a little numb, and I'm probably gonna be talking a little fast like I did in the last one. I actually didn't listen to it before I uploaded it, so I don't ever do, actually. Let's be honest. It's all stream of consciousness, and I only do a retake either when I get grossly interrupted or when I realize I've been rambling for 10 minutes on a topic that has nothing to do with what I intended to talk about. So let's talk about being uncomfortable. It's a different topic than normal for me, but it relates back to censorship and free speech. Free speech to me is the right to speak in a way that others find uncomfortable. And censorship is the intent to make everyone comfortable by silencing speech that make you uncomfortable. I had an argument with someone on Twitter, not really an argument, but a discussion with someone on Twitter, where they were arguing from a held up in court kind of perspective, and I respect that, but I don't give a fuck. If I can't take them to court over it, I don't really give 2 shits. I'm more concerned with their attempt to silence, and that's what censorship is. Censorship is not the conclusion of the act; it is the act itself. To me, it is the act itself of trying to negate or silence a voice. I don't support it in any regards. I don't support silencing people in Gamergate. I don't support silencing people against Gamergate. I don't support silencing game developers of any stripe. I don't support silencing anyone. Whether I disagree with you or not, I do believe you have a voice. What I'd like is you to use that voice to debate rather than to grandstand. My only problem with Anita Sarkeesian is the refusal to accept debate. To accept rebuttal. That's my only problem. Yeah, her fucking methodology is terrible. Her sister use terrible, and she fucking steals other people's Let's Play videos to do her shit. But at the end of the day, if she were allowed to be rebutted, then none of that fucking shit would matter. So I stand by the idea that what we need to do is create a rebuttal site to, if someone posts an article or a video, just respond to it. But devil's advocate. Even if you agree with their post, devil's advocate the fucking thing. But let's talk about being uncomfortable, because that, at its core, is the idea. These ideas, the idea that capitalism exists, it makes Movie Bob and John McIntosh and Anita Sarkeesian apparently terribly uncomfortable, and the fact that people don't give a shit about her makes Brianna Wu uncomfortable, and the fact that things exist to make other people uncomfortable, fuck it. But the reason I'm talking about discomfort specifically is that is what's at the core of actual horror. Horror is different than ghost story. I can make you afraid. I don't necessarily know if I can make you afraid, but you can be made afraid by a thing. You can be spooked by a thing. A jump scare can get you. But horror leaves an impression. Horror leaves a thing. It leaves a little nugget of itself inside of you that fucking sits there. That's what the works of H.P. Lovecraft do for me. And before that, Waite and his story, The Great God Pan, Murders in the Rue Morgue, some of Bradbury's Dark Her work. Some of Barker's work. It's one of the reasons that, among my friends, I don't consider Stephen King horror. Stephen King works very hard to not make you uncomfortable. He tries to scare you, but he tries to very much make you so you're not uncomfortable. And it doesn't work on me. It basically makes me bored as fuck. Mickey Spillane, I consider more of a horror writer than Stephen King, by and large, because that shit, that's some hard stuff to read sometimes, just the way he writes the character and writes the events. In video games, Spec Ops: The Line I consider horror. This War of Mine I consider horror. They're both games that I haven't played Spec Ops The Line for 2 years, but when I think horror video game, the first thing to my mind is how fucking terrible I felt. How goddamn hard it was to keep going at some points in that game. That I could feel the emotional fatigue of the character because of the way they were framing the story. But, according to the movie Bob and John McIntosh, that's not a thing that can happen. Because games have become stagnant. Games have failed. And now, according to another author of the anti side, the pro-corruption side, gameplay is what's holding video games back. The idea that there is a delivery system to your actions of the game, because that's what gameplay is. It is a delivery system to determine your choices. That is what's holding games back. Arthur Chu has argued that gameplay is irrelevant when it comes to reviewing or determining the value of a game. And so we can now confirm scientifically that Arthur Chu does not know the difference between a text-based visual novel and a first-person shooter. Because a first-person shooter mechanic, gameplay, would not work in a visual novel. Okay, I can see how it might work, but a visual novel would be a terrible idea for a first-person shooter. What do? I shoot him. What do you do? I shoot him. What do? I shoot him. What do? Well, that guy shot you. So, let's talk a bit about uncomfortable. Lovecraft's work, which is where I got a lot of my real zeal to get into horror and read horror and write horror, was through Lovecraft's work. I'm sure I'm not the only one. I don't know if any of you are inspired that way. I'm going to guess you at least know who Lovecraft is and Cthulhu is, but let's talk a little bit about who he was. He was as close to a basement-dwelling virgin neckbeard as you're going to get from that era. His mother died when he was very young. He basically continued being raised by his ridiculously and cripplingly schizophrenic father until that man was committed and he went to live with his aunts. And that's where he lived the rest of his life, except for 1 year of marriage to a woman where he lived in New York with her and then divorced her and went home. That is H.P. Lovecraft. He lived in Providence, Rhode Island, and for his entire life, he spent 1 year out of Providence. When the FBI was trying to determine what authors and what popular fiction writers were homosexuals so they could put them on a watch list, the wife, when questioned by them, remarked that during their time together, he was an adequate lover. That's a creepy thing to hear someone say, but it's just what they did then. Was he a racist? Yeah, because science was racist back then. Back then, the prevailing science of humanity was physical anthropology, which was the delineation of subspecies of humans. And that was the accepted science. But, and let me make this clear, if you strike Lovecraft, which is one of the things that the social justice movement as an umbrella is looking at doing through some of the prominent members, if you strike H.P. Lovecraft, you must also strike H.G. Wells. H.G. Wells wrote a 2-volume history of the world in support of the idea of Aryan supremacy. If you want to strike out things that are offensive, you must strike out Alice in Wonderland and the other works of Jules Verne. He was a pedophile. You must strike out these works. You must strike out these authors. You have to. If you're going to do this, then you have to do that. That's what fucking fair is. If you're going to get rid of Lovecraft, you have to get rid of Wells, which means no more War of the Worlds, no more Invisible Man, no more Time Machine, no more Food of the Gods. These great works of science fiction and seminal works and beginning works of science fiction have to be gotten rid of because you don't like the world they lived in. Because it makes you uncomfortable. Well, that's the point of horror. Let's look at Lovecraft. Let's look at that. He writes, if you've ever read Lovecraft, you're either going to love him or hate him. But more than likely, if you hate him, it's probably because of his word choices. But that's part of it. The style of horror he wrote in is called cosmic horror. It's the idea that The universe is a grand, confusing, mysterious, horrifying, dark, inexplicable place, and you are a small, infinitely pathetic, worthless mote of dust mixed in amongst it. And the terror, the danger you face is that when the gods come and when the horrors begin, you will be so small and tiny they won't even fucking notice that they stepped on you. That's cosmic horror. And by writing it the way he did and using the big words, the words you have to use, that you have to strain your brain to follow, he helps kind of accentuate that because it helps alienate you from the character and from the story. But it opens your mind. It keeps your brain working. It keeps you feeling that kind of sense that there's something wrong. There's something out of place. That the story is bigger than you, knows more than you, and therefore it makes you feel small. And it works to me as a discomforting thing. And so that's why Lovecraft stories are still with me. The first time I read Lovecraft, I read through Call of Cthulhu and then The Haunter in the Dark. By the time I was done with The Haunter in the Dark, junior year of high school me was a little worried about getting myself home after dark. Because it's not a matter of, oh God, I'm scared. It's a matter of lingering, that lingering taste of fear that doesn't go away because it's something primal. And that's horror. It's uncomfortable. It's unpleasant. So writing devices. There is nothing off the table if you're a writer. If you're a creator, if you're a video game developer, if you're an artist, there is nothing off the table. If you want to make people feel uncomfortable, be unpleasant. One of my favorite stories I wrote in college, which is 4 computers ago, so it's gone for fucking ever now, unless I rewrite it, which my wife keeps encouraging me to, was an entire story talking about, he feels his fingers in her fingers, very sexual, heavy terminology, basically, they're close, he's putting on her skin. The whole premise of the story was it was a demon who had basically taken a woman's body and was putting on their skin, but it was written in such a way that it was sexual. Because someone had asked me to do something sexy, and I figured, fuck you. So, but be unpleasant. Use your tools. Be horrible. Be unpleasant. I mean, fuck, look at... You want to talk about indie game devs? They want to talk about indie game devs. Let's talk about Phenoxo. I love Phenoxo. I'm not really a huge fan of the games because... it's a lot of work for porn, but Corruption of Champions and Tainted in Space, no, Tales in Tainted Space or something like that, but acronym is TITS. He makes thousands of dollars a month on Patreon so people can have first access to these things because they're sexual and they're graphic and they're graphic text-based. There's no art for it. But it does a good job of conveying what people want. But what people want is unpleasant. It's gross, and it's flesh, and it's skin, and it's contact. You don't want to read. No one, not even fucking Macintosh, not even Movie Bob, wants to play a story where they're sitting there, play a game where they're sitting there, and nothing fucking happens. You want to be challenged. You want to be taken out of your life. And nothing brings you out of your life more than being made uncomfortable. So, I'm putting out a call to campaign. I'm going to try to do it myself this week. Let's do something that's going to make someone's skin crawl. Let's do something that's going to make someone want to close the fucking window. Not offensive, not just, and he raped her, but let's be artistic. Let's show them that unpleasant can be artful, and that art, in all of its fucking forms, can be unfucking comfortable. Let's make some people uncomfortable. Let's make some skin fucking crawl. Let's twist some words, let's twist some meanings in honor of fucking Christmas and tomorrow's winter fucking solstice. Let's make something horrible. Let's make something horrifying. Let's do something that no one wants to read, but everyone will. Let's do a game that no one wants to play, but everyone will. Because that's the point. You can be uncomfortable and enjoy yourself. You can have fun, and at the end of that fun, go, gah. And that's the thing they don't get. That's the thing Macintosh, Movie Bob, Anita don't fucking get. Art isn't meant to make you happy. It's meant to make you feel. And discomfort, unpleasant, afraid, unclean. These are feelings too. Geiger. Fucking aliens. Fucking poltergeist. Fucking... Look at the work. Look at his writings. Look at his shit. Let's do it. Let's be unpleasant. Let's be horror. Because that's what they're fighting. They want to drive discomfort out of their safe space, but they want their safe space to be the world. Let's slither those fucking tendrils of discomfort right the fuck back in, and let's make someone's skin crawl right out the fucking door. And I hope everyone is excited about this as me.